Ah yes, time. It's quite the fitting topic for a shooter to tackle because it's starting to feel like a luxury the genre doesn't have as much of lately. I say this as someone who spent hours upon hours upon hours on various representations of the genre, such as Call of Duty and Halo, as well as third-person shooters, my favorite shooting subgenre actually, which include games like Mass Effect, Gears of War, and Lost Planet 2. Yes, I actually like Capcom's Monster Hunter style take on shooting. Somewhere along the way, however, I started not to care as much about shooters. A large part of it is the been there done that vibe I would mostly get when playing entries in the genre from recent years. Titanfall rekindled the fire a bit, but its lack of a campaign doused those flames real quick. Given a choice, I'm one of those guys who would actually pick a solid story-driven shooter without online almost any time over a multiplayer-only shooter without a campaign. Even then, the new Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare 2, whose predecessor I played to death for months, and was one of the rare exceptions to that rule, didn't provide me as much mileage as the original. This makes the timing for Quantum Break, pun so totally intended, quite curious indeed. Traipsing through the early sections, I remember appreciating its ambition to tell a compelling story, but feeling underwhelmed by the initial attempts at combat. Then the protagonist's temporal powers started to manifest. That's when the game started to grab my attention. For a title that boasts highly polished production values and a neat TV-style approach, I found it amusing how Quantum Break's shooting ultimately proved to be the hook for yours truly. Granted, it's not the first third-person shooter to layer in powers and abilities on top of the regular shooting, but there's just something about how Quantum Break's abilities synergize with each other and weave into the basic shooting that I found quite enjoyable. You start with being able to create time bubbles that freeze foes in place. These allow you to leave a nasty surprise by shooting a hail of bullets at a foe that stop within the bubble and then suddenly rain on them once the bubble dissipates. Well, that or a single well-placed frozen bullet to the noggin. You can also circle around a frozen enemy hiding behind cover, then pop him from the back when time starts running again as he yells, "Impossible!" or something to that effect. Eventually, you add other skills such as a temporal dash that gives you a Matrix-style bullet time effect when you aim down your sights, and a defensive barrier that can stop an incoming barrage of enemy bullets. Better yet, you can combine your different abilities in a way that encourages more aggressive gameplay over your typical cover shooter. Add enemy AI that has a habit of flanking around you, and you'll be compelled to not turtle as much behind cover but use your powers to take the fight to foes under your own terms. It's a bit like Max Payne on temporal steroids. To help mix things up, the game throws in points of interest to be found in the various maps as well as some platforming. Visually, Quantum Break looks quite nice and exhibits the polish of a AAA title. The designs of its environs feature a good aesthetic, and touches such as lighting are excellent. I did notice some hang-ups on occasion, such as some frame rate issues as well as screen tearing, but the game has pleasing visuals overall. Then again, story is also one of the more highly touted elements of Quantum Break prior to its release. The game does a great job early on with its tale, whose narrative elements are heightened by the addition of choice, as well as a thespian cast that includes Shawn Ashmore, Dominic Monaghan, and Aidan Gillen. Or is that Aidan Gillen or Gillen? I have no idea. Granted, the ending doesn't quite close the deal after its brilliant setup, though the story is still solid overall. The actual gameplay sections are also on the short side unless you try to hunt down all points of interest. Then you've got the live-action TV segments, which, while praiseworthy for trying something different from the norm, can feel a bit out of place at times, even as they help flesh out the story. They're also quite long, squeezing in some serious exposition into the mix. Multiplayer lovers also will be bummed by the absence of robust online action. Then again, despite its share of drawbacks, Quantum Break did something that I haven't felt as a fan of shooter campaigns in a while, thanks to its enjoyable shooting mechanics. It actually made me care for the genre again. For my final thoughts, overall I think Quantum Break serves up a fun experience in a genre that's admittedly starting to feel long in the tooth. It doesn't break new ground, but its inclusion of fun temporal powers freshens up the traditional cover shooter mechanics while encouraging some ruthless aggression. If you enjoy cover shooters with a solid story and fun abilities, this is one break you just might want to have.